what I'm going to do while we're waiting for the audience. Hi everyone, welcome. Right now we're doing this broadcast live from Facebook. You can also go to my page, I Survived a Narcissist. You can too. And at 9 p.m. this evening, this episode will be premiering on the YouTube channel, which will be in the description. If you are watching this from YouTube, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss a live broadcast. So I'd like to also tell everyone to go to the page on Facebook, I Survived a Narcissist. You can too, and join our amazing healing community. Tonight we have a great program for you, and I'm with my lifelong friend, Cindy Bross. Here she is.
Hi.
We're going to be talking about virtue signaling and some of the questions I'm about to ask all you guys. But in the meantime, while we're doing this, I'm just going to ask people to go ahead and share this, because this is about to get very insightful and very good. That's if I can find. Okay, I'm going to actually skip this right now because my signal's not working good on this phone. All right, so right now I'm going to ask you guys to go ahead and like this and share this with your groups, with your pages, and with your friends list. And we're going to go over some things, some of the questions that have come in, some of the concerns that people have dealt with. If you're watching this on YouTube, you would be watching it on Punish No More and Free to Protect. I'm Francesca. I'm the best-selling author of the book Punish for Protecting the Injustice System of Family Court. I'm a national advocate, specialty in ADA, American Disability Act. And we're on this journey right now discussing narcissism, or narcissistic personality disorder. And I brought Cindy in because she has a lot of insight on this topic. She's going to share a little bit about her testimony, as well as what she's learned in the past few years. I've gained a lot of knowledge from her as well. And just the fact that we both have this passion right now to see healing across our nation, across our families, across individuals. And this, to me, actually seriously affects just all of society, but affects our children growing up, the next generations to come, families on a whole. So this is a very serious subject to me. And I've been doing a lot of teaching on this. I've been doing a lot of learning on this subject. And I'd like to share some of the stuff with you that Cindy has to share. If you are not on my YouTube channel, please, I will put it in the description. Make sure that you do like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon on YouTube. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to start with is, one of the topics that we were talking about is that it seems like the whole world is disagreeing on just about everything these days. Mm-hmm. But I think that every single one of us can at least agree that this planet is in steady and rapid decline.
Oh, yes, most definitely. Everywhere you look, it's in decline. Every day, the boundaries of sin are being pushed further and further, and the line between what's right and wrong has been slowly removed. And it's been removed by society, by TV, by computers that we can hold in our hands, and we know them as cell phones. The internet, pop culture, new age belief systems, witchcraft, spiritualism, they're all being celebrated. And even among some who are professing to be Christians, or these people who are professing to be Christians are also what I say are fake believers or non-believers. And we've been just so far removed from the world that God has created for us and intended for us.
That's very true. And it leads me to what a lot of the families have asked me, a lot of the questions, and a lot of the questions that I've asked that I wanted to touch on, because a lot of questions go unanswered, and people kind of just live their life in this place where they don't understand why these things are happening. And I feel like that's why we're doing this live broadcast tonight, so we can answer those questions.
Yes.
But some of the questions that come are, why would people target you? Why would people research you out? Why would people study you?
Essentially, it's to me, it's the lack of faith. It's Satan's work. Satan is working overtime. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like the misery loves company. Mm-hmm. They hate everything good. Mm-hmm. And, so it's sad, but I really feel like, okay, this country is getting further away from God, and Satan is working overtime, and that's That's why this is happening.
And just like you were saying, all you have to do is turn on the news or even scroll through Facebook, and you will hear of rioting and senseless killings and people declaring a race war, bullies who are provoking others and spewing nothing but hate from their mouths.
Yeah, it's the battle between good versus evil. And, it's getting increasingly difficult to fight as we remove God from the equation. And, the true believers are slowly becoming the minority. And if they aren't already, actually. And, what's happening is the true believers are slowly becoming the minority, and we're afraid. We're afraid to speak out, because if we do, then we're going to be berated. But what does that sound like? That sounds like, the narcissist and what he does or she does.
The intimidation of the narcissist.
Yes.
To silence the voice.
Right. They don't want you to speak out. And otherwise, and you feel like you can't speak out. And I think that's what they're calling the silent majority now, is we're afraid to speak out. But there's so many parallels between, Fran does such a wonderful job of teaching us about narcissism. And if you look at narcissism, you see the parallels between what's going on in society. And, we're afraid to speak out, just like we are in our narcissistic relationships. We're afraid to speak out. We're suffering from the narcissistic abuse, and we don't say what's on our mind. And, so I think that's definitely one of the parallels between narcissism. But the believer really does not want to speak out because out of fear of just being berated.
And I one of the things obviously that I do is I have a platform to give a voice to people, and a lot of times people ask me to be their voice, which is an honorable, it's a place that I feel honored to be able to have someone come to me and, can you be my voice with regards to such and such, and I have to truly take heart and believe in that person and believe in whatever it is that we're trying to support at that time, generally with families and children and so on. So I have seen throughout the years, one of the things in this particular battle is, like, we have groups out there that, we see it with President Trump. He is just, whether you like him or not, he's massively attacked. And we know that a lot of this is just like a troll working. Yes. I have it in a smaller scale, okay, but I've gotten to experience a taste of that in the past 3 to 4 years. I've personally experienced a taste of what he must be going through as a man in his 70s, working around the clock. We see him up at 3 and out at, like all the hours that he puts in. And, I am not neither right nor left in that personally. I believe in no labels. I believe in no political affiliation. I believe in true, genuine, biblically based, I can't think of his name. Oh gosh, he was a pastor, doctor, and I can't think of his name right now, but he said Jesus was not a politician, he was a statesman. Okay? And people have fallen so far from God that they don't understand, and they try to make God in their image versus God in us in God's image.
Right.
And I think I see that a lot with the left and the right, obviously much heavier on the left, where it's a lot of demonic activity and a lot of this that's going on. But
and you see on the left too, you hear of people now today, they talk about speaking their truth.
Yeah.
And I have to live my truth. And, okay, so what happens when you live your truth? You're not living for God and His truth. There's one truth.
There's
only
one
truth.
Truth by definition is
and,
one truth.
Yeah. So there's one truth. How can everybody be living their own truth when there's one truth? Right. So that's the thing that really, really gets me. And when we are without God, we can only be accountable to ourselves. But that will lead us to certain destruction.
Right. Absolutely.
We need to be accountable to God. That's who we need to be accountable to. Too many truth is it leads to discontinuity and unrest and people fighting and that's because everybody's living their own truth.
Right. Right.
So that's what Satan wants. That's what he wants. He wants us all to be fighting, and not getting along. And we should all be living by this one truth. And there would not, sure, we're all going to have sin. We're all going to have that.
Right.
There's never going to be a perfect world. But we know, and we're accountable to God at least. And we can ask for forgiveness. We can, receive God's grace and mercy.
That's right. And I want to touch on what we talked about a few weeks ago when we did the Continuum of Self. But before we do that, I want to elaborate more on what you're talking about now. As an advocate, when I go into these courts and when I deal with these different families, I do have to decipher between what's the truth and what's a lie. And a lot of people are really good at those lies. They really are convincing, that they're telling the truth. I've been fooled by it. I mean, I'm saying it right here. I've been fooled by certain people many times.
Me included too. I mean, we've all been fooled.
I think the Bible's very clear about that. Even the elect can be fooled if that were possible. I mean, he wouldn't say that if it wasn't true. Even the elect can be fooled or can be deceived if it wasn't possible. So we have to keep very, very short accounts, close accounts with God, so that we're not fooled.
Exactly.
One of the things I'm getting is a lot of mail and a lot of phone calls lately with regards to this whole narcissism aspect of it. And I feel that it is so important that I'm sad to see people that are not catching on to the fact that, some will say to me, well, are you not a part of family rights anymore? Well, no, this is one of the biggest components of why this is going on in the first place.
Yes.
And if you don't heal yourself, number one,
yes,
and then the people around you or those that you're accountable for.
But the narcissist won't do that because
the
of the
narcissist
ego.
Won't.
They won't heal themselves.
No, absolutely. The narcissist won't. And the non-narcissist, though, still needs to get that inner healing. And
of course,
we still have to look at ourselves in order to not receive this anymore, know how to cut it off. And that's one of the things that I deal with these people. It sounds good. It sounds good sometimes, but I love them. And I'm going to touch on this whole love aspect in a minute, biblically speaking and just overall, which I feel that God has been showing me so many things about love and the empath or the codependent or the person that is highly empathetic, an empath.
And they don't necessarily have to be codependent or narcissistic.
No, they don't.
Can have some of those traits.
Right.
And that's what I was talking about on the Continuum of Self. With Ross Rosenberg in his book, The Human Magnet Syndrome. And there's a continuum. We were talking about that, Fran and I, a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the further out you get laterally on the spectrum, the more clinically narcissistic or codependent you are. The more you move towards the center, the healthier you are. One side is about self, and one side is about others. But that just seems to be how we are in the world anyway. You have people who are about self, and you have people who are about others. And it seems like that's where the battle is right now. Self, others. Right, wrong. Lawlessness and law-abiding, accountability and lack of accountability. That's the biggest one, in my opinion, is accountability, and then of course who we're accountable to.
And we're supposed to be accountable for everyone around us. Our lives affect other people's lives.
Correct. We're all interconnected.
If you don't take care of your children properly and raise them in the way they should go, now we know that courts come in and hinder that raising process, but the quicker we can come back to healing ourselves, and I mean, I do believe this very much. I do believe this very much. I've been watching a lot. I do believe this is a biblically based foundation when taught properly. Law of attraction or law of expectation is biblically based when taught properly. God, there's nothing new under the sun, and the devil doesn't outdo God in any way, shape, or form.
Law of attraction is essentially prayer.
It's essentially prayer. It's essentially
communion with God.
Positive. I mean, even Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, he was right on the money years ago. Do you know who that is? The power of positive thinking, and it's biblically based. So it's not some new age thing, because again, there's nothing new under the sun. And there's some things that Christians can learn from other places. In churches, for example, I remember all the fattening sweets come out and all the poisons and the toxic foods while you're praying over your sick body. So it's a contradiction, but yet the new age, so to speak, would be on organic, and then, I won't look at that because it's not Bible. No, it is actually Bible. They're just actually operating in something that is biblically correct, but they're not giving God the credit for it, and we're not, as Christians, because we got all the junk out, okay, but we want to, or it would be like an addict. You just got deliverance from alcoholism and drugs, but now you're going to go sit in a bar and fellowship. That just doesn't equate. So the reason I'm saying that is because with this aspect of law of attraction and law of expectation, for example, and I'll get into this a lot deeper because I'm going to be heading in this direction along with the teaching of the narcissism, because I believe in healing. One of the things that they talk about is that the people that attack you, so to speak, or the relationship you get into, and this is something that might be hard for people to understand, is you pushed out, okay? Now, have you ever heard of that term, you pushed out? It's literally, if I think somebody is bad, they're going to treat me bad. You said it before, if I think well, I'll be careful on that one, but if I think I'm going to walk, I see the difference. If Cyndy and I both walked into a store and I treated the clerk really, really nice, eventually a kind word will turn away wrath. If Cyndy came in with an attitude that clerk is nasty all the time, and I had this happen with a waitress. We used to call her Happy because she was miserable all the time, and that would continue to treat you poorly. Okay, so that's kind of what that means. You pushed out. Now that doesn't mean you're to take the blame or be victimized for a narcissist treating you a certain way. Okay, but it is, and I'm going a few steps ahead right now, but it is something that I will be gradually teaching in spoonfuls until everybody can get it, where once you go through the healing process of a narcissist, because I believe in cutting off, very much so, but prayer and praying for, as long as you're not going to be pulled in anymore, when you know you're not going to be pulled in anymore, there are things that you can do, okay? And the Bible, stop saying over and over again, like let's say you're praying for an addict, for example. Stop saying, Johnny's an addict, Johnny's an addict, Johnny's an addict. Every day you're speaking death over Johnny.
Right.
It's like when they go to AA, I am an alcoholic, blah, 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 blah. So you never get out of that mind frame. And it's been completely, science has proven this. It shows the,
You're putting it
the
out
brain.
there.
It shows the actual brain. And if you look under an MRI, it's not an MRI, what is it?
CAT scan?
If you look under the CAT scan, it'll show the difference in the brain. It actually shows that a person that's addicted didn't have that part of the brain until they started drinking or drugging. And that brain now changes, and that brain will change back when that person is fully healed. It's amazing.
It's mindset. I mean, everything is about mindset. And that's why we're talking about the broken mindset, the broken mentality, the broken spirit. I use them all.
Of the believer. Or so-called believer.
Well, it's when you have a broken mindset, it's because you're unbelieving, or you're a fake believer. You're kind of a believer, but you're not doing anything that really.
The fruit is not there.
Exactly.
The fruit is not there. We were talking about fruit the other day. In mostly every Italian home, there's like a bowl on the table in most Italian homes of the plastic fruit, and so that's the fruit that a lot of people who profess to be Christians have. They don't have the fruit, and I've met these people, and this is why
that's a very good analogy.
It's a counterfeit. It looks like a fruit.
You're like going to take the apple, and you're like ready, and
you
just
can't
plastic.
eat that. And that's exactly what we're dealing with. And what were you saying? The virtue
signaling, which we'll get into.
Did you want to touch on that a little bit, though?
I kind of wanted, because we were, in my thought process, I've written a lot of notes here, and we were talking about, I spent all week doing this. We were talking about the continuum of self and how, there's the self on one side and others on the other side. And, it brought me to 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 7. Yep. And I'm going to read that to you. And it's, there will be terrible times in the last days. And do I think we're in the last days? Most likely. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, ego. It's the ego. Abusive, disobedient, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, which I think, through projection and false allegations, without self-control. They're brutal, not lovers of the good.
What are some of the things of no self-control? Because people get stuck on that sometimes. People think, it means they have no self-control, so they're just going to get on a roller coaster ride that is broken. You know what I mean? But I see it totally different. Like, no self-control, like indulging in like 17 beers instead of maybe.
Well, they don't have self-control in the words that they speak. And in the way that they treat others, because they're so much about themselves that it's always a battle, and they don't think before they because they're not accountable.
They're not accountable.
So they're very hurtful people, and they're not in control of themselves in that way. So they can lash out. That's how I see, without self-control. They're brutal. They're not lovers of the good. Treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. Now this is where we're getting into. This is where we're getting into it. They have some form of godliness, which is what we were referring to with the virtue signaling and the wolf in sheep's clothing, but denying its power. having nothing to do with them.
Have nothing to do with them.
Yes.
The fake believer.
Yes.
And I dealt with that I literally dealt with that a few months back when this all took place. I dealt with that, and I'm convinced now. I am convinced. Like at first, and here's the thing too, is I was shocked that this person wasn't truly a believer. Why do they look like a believer, act like a believer, show the Bible?
This is all virtue signaling, guys.
Quote the scriptures, but behind closed doors, and to do it to me, and I'm not saying I'm anything at all, but the position that I'm in, especially as a woman, okay, that manly men, godly men, and we both are churchgoers, they will protect you, they will defend you, they will cover you for protection's sake.
Yes.
They will not be harsh to you. They wouldn't tell you privately, speak now and tell me this and then accuse you. Never.
No, never.
But then go to the public and show the Bible and quote the scriptures and act and speak eloquently and really have a lot to offer the world, really, especially in the topic that we are doing.
And as someone who's known this woman for 30 years, this is a true Christian right here.
I'm not going to lie.
I will put my life on that. So lastly, we're in 2 Timothy 3, verse, where do we leave
3,
off? We're in
7.
6 now.
Oh, I'm sorry, 6.
So we're in 6. They are the kind who worm their way into homes and gain control over weak-willed women.
And it goes for men too.
And weak-willed. I mean, you can say maybe these are people who are maybe a little insecure or have a poor sense of self, or it could have some level of codependency. And these weak-willed women are loaded down with sin and are swayed away by all kinds of evil desires, always learning but never able to acknowledge the truth. So looking in 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 7, all of this sounds like the narcissist. It really defines
the
Bible, the truth, the one truth. It is laying it all out for us. This is the epitome of narcissism right there. Okay, the end. We're done. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
So yeah, I mean,
who's going to Mary Jane's? Oh, that's an ice cream parlor here, by the way. Oh,
so basically, my main point today is what I'm trying to say is that with the lack of God in our lives,
Sorry, keep going.
With the lack of God in our lives comes a broken spirit and a broken mentality, and a broken mindset. This broken mentality, this broken spirit of the unbeliever can lead to narcissism, and some narcissistic traits. By no means am I stating that all unbelievers are narcissists. I'm not saying that. However, there's really a lot of parallels and a lot of similarities in the tools that they use, the unbeliever and everything that's wrong in the society, these people that are trying to create unrest. There's a lot of similarities between the tools that these people use and narcissism. So if you understand, like I said, if you understand narcissism as you know, Fran has been very dedicated.
Such an eye-opener.
You're going to understand what's wrong in today's world. There's a lot of parallels there. So, you know, this is a key point that I really wanted to hit home. Is there's two different kinds of people with a broken spirit or a broken mentality, and you can have a broken spirit or be moving away from God. You could have a broken mentality. You could have things that happen in your life and you're moving along the wrong path, and that's the broken mentality, the broken spirit. But the two people that I'm talking about here, there's going to be one person who they both have the broken spirit, but there's going to be one person who reflects inward and says, what's going on with me? What can I do to heal myself? There's going to be another person, the same person with a broken mindset, and they're going to say, well, why? It's because it's somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's fault.
Right.
And it's their ego. Again,
it's ego-based.
It's their ego, and they love to play the victim. They love, and that's again in society. They love to blame the victim,
which takes away from a real victim. Like it's that whole re-victimization I see in the courts all the time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that leads me to my own testimony a bit, I've always been a Christian. I grew up in the Presbyterian church. My mom was a believer. My family was a believer. And I always believed. There came a time in my adulthood where I moved away from the things of God for a little while. I was married. We grew apart. We split apart. We didn't have God in our marriage. And I think that was one major thing that led to our demise. But the thing is I had, why? Because I wasn't completely with God. I had a broken spirit. And I did end up leaving the marriage, and that's what led to a lot of brokenness, a lot of, I had no peace in my heart. I was really a devastated person, and I didn't know where to go. And I turned back to God. And this is 3 years ago in my life, and God slowly brought me back and showed me what I needed to see. And I think God, he wants the best for us. And no, he did not have a hand in my divorce. I had the hand in that. But he takes what's broken and he makes it even better than what it was before. And what happened was I was able to look at myself. I wasn't pointing at someone else and playing the victim. And, sure, there's always two people in a relationship that, can do wrong, but that's not where I wanted to go. I wanted to look at myself. And I started to understand things from my childhood and certain qualities in one of my parents that led me to be who I was. And
let's stop one thing that I want to say. She was not with a narcissist.
No.
So I just want to make this
in my
clear.
marriage, I was not with a narcissist. Yeah. He's a lovely man. I'll never say anything bad about him.
Wonderful.
No. But actually, what happened was, and it's good that you mentioned that.
I had to say that just to clarify.
If you know me and you know my ex-husband, you know he's a lovely guy.
Awesome.
Yes, he's a very good guy. So, I was very broken, and when you're broken, you can't be in a relationship that's healthy and good for you. And I admit to that, and I look at myself, and I don't look to my ex-husband or things that he could have done differently. No, I mean, you get your power when you are accountable, and you're accountable, to God as well. So, because I was broken, that's when I ended up in a narcissistic relationship.
After.
Yes.
Yeah.
So so now I feel like I am quite the expert on narcissism, and so
sometimes the best experts are life experts.
yes. I am not a therapist, or I don't
go
have
to school and learn and get your degree, but when you live it, there's no comparison.
When you live it, you
can go to cooking school, but when you cook, that's the difference.
So school. Yes, I mean, I could have been that person who just was always blaming other people.
Else.
But I take responsibility. I look to God, and God has brought me back to the person who I am today. And I'm so thankful that although I didn't want a broken marriage, it led me to who I am. And so yeah, that's my testimony. But I believe that there's those two types of people.
Yes, accountable and not accountable.
Yes, or playing the victim and wants to blame everybody else as opposed to looking at themselves and turning to God, because God will heal everything. And I truly believe that
he does heal everything. He is amazing.
Yes.
And I've got to literally, we pretty much grew up together in a sense, not as little kids, but like young teens and up, I'd say.
Yes, very early teens. So I would even say 11, 12 years old I was, so that would be...
So I was 13, okay. So, but I age in reverse. If you don't agree, I'm going to tell you, I age in reverse. Okay, so anyway.
Don't be narcissistic, Brenda.
So, yeah, right. So, but I've watched her grow, and it's an amazing thing to see you, like seriously. And I learned from her, so...
as well as I learned a ton from Fran. She's amazing. Stick with her, guys. Stick with her. She's great.
Thank you, though. But this topic has become like just very serious on my heart, and it brings more healing as the days go by. I noticed that first obviously it's a painful thing to come out of a relationship with a narcissist, because you wouldn't be in it if you didn't love the person or
very
what have you.
painful.
And that's what I wanted to touch on. I'm going to touch on this love aspect. I want to touch on this right now. I really believe this is going to bring a lot of healing to a lot of empaths out there, okay, or people that are in this type of relationship with what I'm about to share on love. But before I touch that, I want to say first you come to the hurt part of it, okay? And it is extremely painful.
It's painful.
Extremely, because you fell in love with a person that really doesn't exist.
And it actually activates a part in your brain that feels pain, physical pain as well. I know that's a little side note, but they even say to take aspirin, ibuprofen, when you're in this kind of emotional pain. But it's just as bad as physical pain.
Right.
Yeah.
All of the greats that I'm watching on YouTube, all the Dr. Ramani, what is it, Sue? I always do this. I have
a list of them here
need
somewhere.
their list because there's so
I have
good.
a list. I have a few. There's the Dr. Ramani. There's Ross Rosenberg, and I love Pastor R.C. Blakes.
Yep,
there's
R.C.
Les
Blakes.
Carter. I don't know if you've seen Les Carter.
Oh yes, I just recently started watching Les.
He's pretty good.
Oh, he is good.
And
He's
Angie
good.
Atkinson, she's Queen
Yes,
Being.
Angie, Queen Being.
Yes, Queen.
Shout
Queen
out to
Being.
you.
Yes,
We love you.
We love her. Hi, Angie, if you're watching.
I'm gonna tag all of them on YouTube because these guys they're just oh my God.
Yes, but Ross Rosenberg was the one that took me out of the depths of
Jen, is that girl? She's strong voice.
I feel like I've seen them all, and I get them like, they're certain
great.
favorites that I have, which I just listed off. But Pastor R.C. Blakes is amazing. He is the author of Queenology, Kingology, the father-daughter talk, and Soul Ties, just to name a few. He's probably got more. I don't even know, but he's a wonderful, wonderful man. Actually, follow him online.
They're excellent, and the thing is that you can what I was going to say is you come out of there's R.C. Blake's.
Yes.
I've got so many of them here. But so once you come out of the hurt and pain, I'm telling you, don't keep going back in. Don't, that's the worst thing you could do. So that's one of the things I want to say is that when I get these emails or I'm talking to somebody, and I can tell that they finally have it. The light bulb went off. You can see the person now. They're at that point, but then they start making these little excuses. Yeah. You can't do that because that's a dangerous place.
But that's where the education comes in. Because when you're educated, you know what's going to happen. You can predict every single move of the narcissist. And when it happened to me, sure enough, I was like, oh, yep.
It's time.
Here we go.
Here we go.
And although it's still in you in the beginning.
Lisa A. Romano.
She's Lisa
excellent.
Romano. Yes.
So shout out to you, Lisa A. Romano.
She's fabulous.
I mean, there's so many. And then it's Jess. That's her name. Where is she? She's so good. I will find her.
There's someone else that I have in mind, and I can't think of his name right now. But he talks a lot about the Myers-Briggs personality types, and he's an INFJ personality type, and so am I. Hi, all you INFJs out there, if there are any, because we're only 2%, 1 to 2% of the population. We're very unique.
Yeah.
So sorry, we tend to get a little sidetracked.
Jess Stanley.
We can put all these in comments.
Shout out to Jess Stanley. I'm saying it just like it is. She's a badass. Okay, so let me go to this whole love aspect though, because I think this is really important for you guys to understand. And this is exactly how I look at it, okay? And this is how I hear stuff throughout the day. My sheep hear my voice, the Bible says. God says, my sheep hear my voice, okay? So we can hear God's voice. We're not out there hearing voices like, Sybil. No, we hear God's voice. You hear his still small voice. You hear his voice. And so he talks to us throughout the day if you get quiet enough to listen, okay? And one of the questions was this whole loving aspect, people. Because we all go through this. Like, you did love that person. You love them. You know how much you love them. You know how pure your heart was toward that person.
Yes.
Now, you don't have to stop loving the person. And this is the weird part. Like, I don't want to say weird, but like, when you're enabling somebody and they're an addict, for example, okay, you're not loving them by enabling them. That's a hard lesson for people to learn.
Yes.
This is similar to that. Love. But you can love them by distancing yourself.
Yes.
You can love them by
for
exposing what you need to. Jesus, let me tell you, people go, Jesus didn't expose people. Really, every name in the Bible is named. Like, history in the Bible shows a name. Jezebel's name is named as exposed and named. Okay? Ahab's name is named by name. David's name is named by name. Their lineage, their genealogy is named. You know who that person is. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just, you saw their whole genealogy. So don't say Jesus didn't do something if you don't know what you're talking about. He named people. He knocked them off their horse. He threw them in a whale. He knocked them around sometimes. Like, you know, like, get to know the one you claim you know. Okay, so exposing, loving from a distance, loving from not engaging. Engaging doesn't necessarily mean
disengage.
Disengage.
That's the one thing that you can do.
Keep going back into the fire. Sometimes you don't have a choice because you're co-parenting, so to speak, and all this other terminology that's out there. You may not have a quote-unquote choice, but you will eventually, because God will move mountains for you when you line up with His will. He will, and that's why people are so shocked when they see the favor on certain people after trolls and nonsense try to take you down. They're like, how did that person come up out of the mire like that so quickly and bounce back? Because when you line up with God, He will bless your life. He will, it's just that simple. And He will use everything that you've been through to help others come up out of the mire. And the Bible says that, like, a prophet's not welcome in their own home. You know, those who receive a prophet receive a prophet's reward. You need to hear, the Bible says, you know, not just do you have to hear God, but you have ears and do not hear. You have eyes and do not see. Sometimes there's things that are brought into your life that you're missing it because you're so distracted by all this other chaos and nonsense and craziness that we see going on in the world today. Mm-hmm. If you notice, God doesn't have me in D.C. right now. He told me not to go. I could have been there with everybody else. He told me not to. He said the work's already done. So it's a lot of just, to me, toiling and chasing tail stuff that God doesn't tell me to do. Okay, but I hear there's a difference. Like, you have to hear, listen, and heed. So what is this love thing? You loved that person, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. I've always said from not ashamed of saying that I love somebody or love somebody. Never, never. And one of the things, Jillian Gordon, who's the therapist that I see, my son sees, and I have a Christian counselor as well, and I work with psychologists, psychotherapists, you name it, to make sure that I'm not speaking something I shouldn't be, or I'm not diagnosing somebody I shouldn't be diagnosing, so to speak.
Right.
Because I'm not going to put false judgments on people, okay? But my goal isn't to keep them there either. This is going to be the lessons we're all going to be going into and growing into as time goes on. How to help even the narcissists get healed. Because I do believe our God is very powerful.
He's the only one that can do it.
Only one. But the whole love thing, okay? Listen, Jesus was on that cross, and if you don't think that wasn't the worst suffering ever, and He did that all because He loved us, okay? Mm-hmm. He loved you and me so much before we were born, before you knew our name, He knew it, before time. He did that. He suffered, bled, died. He was accused falsely. He was spit at. He had the crown of thorns pierced into His head. He was whipped for our sin because He loved us. That's love. So I'm not saying you're supposed to be abused for love. I'm not saying that at all. Okay? Jesus took that on for Himself. And I'm not saying that you're supposed to be some crazy martyr in life, unless God called you to be a martyr. And I wouldn't argue with Him if that was the case. I'm simply saying that the Bible says that love is the greatest weapon of all. Love covers a multitude of sins. If it's the most powerful weapon of all, and that's what He gives us, then you go right on continuing to love. And I spoke to a woman the other day on the phone, and I said, she goes, I feel like such a failure in relationships. I said, you're not a failure. You love the person? Yes. The person's not reciprocating love? No. How are you a failure? You are not a failure at all. You're actually highly successful in God's equation of what love is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. See, we think so wrong because we think in such a worldly mindset into what exactly Cindy's talking about tonight, is that we don't even think properly anymore. We don't have the role model families because, old fashioned is a joke today.
Yes. But I was just having that conversation with somebody this morning, how, old fashioned values. It's just people look at you like you're crazy, like you have 20 heads. They're like, well, what do you mean? You believe that sex before marriage is wrong? And don't get me wrong, I'm not like, I falter just like everyone else, but I still am accountable. It's the people who don't want to be accountable and say, I'm just, living for the moment. Let's just live and we only live once and then we're going to die. So we might as well be happy. It's that mentality. Right. And I just can't be with that mentality. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's go back to...
So getting back to... we're talking about really the parallels between a narcissist or someone with narcissistic traits, because, and I think at some point or another, all of us have actually had narcissistic traits, because we all do have some sort of ego in us. We always want to be right and, project onto other people, but that's a whole other thing. But
just when you said that, narcissistic projection.
So yeah,
I'm gonna read that.
So we're getting into the parallels between the tools that narcissists use and what society is doing now and which is, I believe, the work of Satan, what society is doing now to kind of steer us away from God. And we touched on it before, which is, she went off camera and left me. We touched on it before, and it's called virtue signaling. And I'm going to read what virtue signaling is. And I believe this is something that's often used by the fake believer or the unbeliever. It's the conspicuous, so it has to be out there and everybody has to see it, the conspicuous and disingenuous expression of moral values, or what a lot of people like to call it today, like they're woke, they're tolerant, they're accepting. But this is with the intent to enhance one's own image. And it's in an effort to get you to see them in a better light and manipulate you into thinking like they do. So, we have a visitor. Hi.
This is what I was. I'm sorry.
I keep wanting to call him Winston. It's Wesley.
That was great.
Okay, so she's tending to the dog. So we're talking about virtue signaling, and so let's give some examples of virtue signaling. So, and I don't really like to get into to politics either, because we're placing labels again, like Fran was saying. I agree with her there, but we've all seen by now, okay, that the scene where Nancy Pelosi and her fellow party members are kneeling on the floor in this African, they call it kente, stoles, and which is the epitome of cultural appropriation, by the way. But that's a whole other YouTube video or Facebook video, and they're kneeling for a moment of silence and in solidarity. And they just appear so, so virtuous. This was basically the Nancy Pelosi virtue signaling show, in my opinion, and in all its glory on display for all of us to get a good laugh at, honestly. And this is just essentially very good acting.
Right.
So now, in the narcissist uses virtue signaling, and this is the wolf in sheep's clothing, and they're in the churches, they're very covert, and they can cite, scripture, they can, they love to do good deeds. Is there anything wrong with doing good deeds? Heck no. It's wonderful. Everybody loves to do good deeds, but where you realize that a person is narcissistic in nature is when they need the validation coming back to them for that good deed. So they need to be validated. They need to be seen in this wonderful light. So they do a good deed, they don't get the validation, and oh yeah, I'm so wonderful. They don't get that, and they start to get upset. So that's definitely a narcissistic quality. Someone who's healthy-minded, they do it because they want to do it.
Right.
They're doing it to, because they love people. They're lovers of God, and
Right.
this is why they do it. So yeah, I mean, so they use this to they use religion and faith and this appearance of piousness or virtuous, being virtuous, to fool others into thinking that they are godly and trustworthy. That's the key. They want people to think that they're very trustworthy, and so you won't question what they're doing.
That person can't be bad. Look what they just did.
Exactly.
I fell for that.
But true believers don't have to be conspicuous. They don't have to go on TV and kneel and get the flying monkeys, which we'll talk about too. And I know Franz talks about it. Get the flying monkeys around them and what that does does is it makes people, wow, they have all these people following them, and they appear to be so
good.
It must be great. But true believers don't need to be conspicuous about their virtue. They just are, and they don't need the validation either. So that's how you know, when someone is doing a good deed for themselves as opposed to doing it for others.
Yeah, that's right. That's 100% right.
So Fran wants to get into the projection, because projection is, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit before I get into it. But basically what projection is it's
narcissistic projection. Right?
Well, projection in general is when someone accuses you of what they are guilty of in an effort to take the blame off of themselves and place it onto someone else.
That's in scripture too. Tell me your name. That's in scripture too. Tell me your name.
So some examples of projection, and this is so we're comparing society with narcissists, or people with narcissistic traits, I should say, because I can't diagnose somebody as a narcissist. But so an example of the way society does this is they also tie it into virtue signaling and false disgust. That's another thing.
Wait, what did you say? False disgust?
False disgust. They are It's false disgust. I don't know if I've coined that or not. I don't know where I got.
I haven't heard that one yet.
So let me explain. So a false disgust is when you'll hear something like this. So I wrote this down. I'm so tired of hearing Christians talk about God, yet they have so much hate in their hearts. This is classic projection, people.
That's
classic projection. So, because the believer is being accused of the very thing that they are guilty of, which is hate. And they're doing this by using false disgust. They're disgusted at our virtue. What is this guy doing?
I don't know.
Leslie, he's entertainment.
No,
He's so cute. He sounds like a little pig when he snorts. I'm going to wait for Fran to come back because I know this is her favorite part. Okay. Let's see. Oh, we're 43 minutes in, so we're not doing too bad. I hope we haven't bored you guys completely to tears. So I'm going to actually read what I wrote about this and how that statement is classic projection. I'm so tired of hearing Christians talk about God and all they do is spew hate out of their mouths. Well, so I'm going to read to you my notes, basically. So this is classic projection because the believer is being accused of the very thing that they themselves are guilty of, which is hate. We're being accused of being hateful. And they're doing this by using false disgust to signal their virtue. The virtuous trait being their disgust of hateful people. So the hateful people,
so they're hating us.
The hateful people that they are referring to are the true believers.
That's funny.
But is it me, or does this seem
because it's a typical,
utterly ridiculous?
It's a typical narcissistic thing. When you're in a relationship with somebody that does this false projection to you, you're going, I know I didn't do that today, and because you're naive to what they're doing until you start to catch on, you don't realize they're actually doing it. They're actually telling on themselves. They're actually, it's like the people that'll say to me on Facebook, you can't talk about that. You're so rude or whatever. And I'm going, aren't you being rude by saying that to me right now? Or you, whatever. And I'm like, I said to this one woman the other day, are you with me all day long? Do you have any idea what I did this morning? And she finally shut up because...
That's what I love about her. She could shut people down. With the truth. Truth is what shoots people down. So that's society's projection. There,
Yeah, it's projection.
But then there's the narcissistic projection. I know you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah.
So, but the narcissistic projection can be, this could be any situation where the narcissist accuses you of something that they are guilty of. And what is the most classic narcissistic projection?
You're cheating.
You're cheating. you're cheating. The most common one is cheating. They have to
and you're
accuse
like,
you
here's
of
where
it.
I am, take a picture. Here's my notes, here's where I was, here's my receipts, here's this, here's that. Let's call the court, let's do this is where I was. And
yeah, so they have to accuse you of it in order to take the focus off of them cheating.
The guilty always do that.
And place it on you.
Mm-hmm.
So so projection is just one of the narcissist's favorite things to do, and society does this as well. And this is what I'm saying. I've been seeing the parallels, and
right,
I've been talking to Fran all week. Like,
the parallels
this is
are
crazy.
uncanny.
They're uncanny. The tools that are being used in society right now, and the media gathering the flying monkeys.
Oh, yeah.
So it's and I love all these terms because they are so they're so helpful in us understanding what's going on here.
It does, makes it simple.
Did you want to talk about the gaslighting? Because the gaslighting, that's really crazy making. But did you want to talk about that?
Well, why don't you touch on the gaslighting?
Okay,
because I can add to it for
gaslighting
sure.
to me, and everybody kind of explains. It's
movie.
all the same.
They go back to the movie
where
he gaslit the wife.
Yeah, the movie. I forget the name of the movie,
Gaslight.
but
Oh no, it wasn't gaslight. It was you keep talking. I'll find it.
So there was a movie where they coined the term
black and white
gaslighting. Fran will look it up for you, but essentially what it is, it's twisting the truth. So to get you to question yourself. So what I wrote in my notes here, hope you don't mind me reading. This is what I just said. This is a crazy making technique which has you questioning.
Oh, it's called gaslight.
Oh, it is called gaslight?
Gaslight.
I don't know.
But manipulate by psychological means into questioning your own sanity.
Right. So your question, it's so you question your reality, and this is done by telling basically outward lies and doing so in a manner that makes you question yourself. So society does this. Obviously, narcissists do this as well, and they gaslighting. You can take in other things, like the way that they do this is they can use the flying monkeys. So they can. So society does this with the media. The media, it goes out to the masses. That's why, but to me, the media is like the devil, because it goes out to the masses.
They premeditate this.
But what happens is
they plan it. They come together. They have a plan. They say, we're going to do this, and we're going to dress like this, and we're going to set this up. And
so media goes out to the masses, and then what happens? The masses or the weak-willed or the weak-willed people. They actually follow this nonsense, and so that's the flying monkeys. So now you have these flying monkeys everywhere, and everybody's on board with the nonsense.
Doing their bidding.
With the nonsense. I mean, let's face it, what is going on today is utter nonsense.
It's totally insanity.
It's complete insanity.
It's like Bellevue on the outside of the world, threw up all over the country.
Yeah.
That's what it's, and that's what I said about Facebook years ago. I mean, one of the guys is actually in jail now for 4 months for what he did to me, and now what's going on now is literally the same trolls that surrounded him now are together with the people that tried to have a relationship with me in my life. Like, that's just crazy. They go to these lengths.
Yes,
They go to these lengths. That's what I was trying to say. Like, has anybody out there been gaslit? Because that's gaslighting, let's face it. You plotted this out. You planned this out.
Yes.
And we see it in churches. We see it in...
They're very calculated.
It's very calculated.
Yes.
And as this is... Yeah. So bad. I don't want to
So I mean, so that's how society actually gaslights. Is they get the flying monkeys. They use the media. Narcissists, they also use the flying monkeys to gaslight you, because they like to get people on board, with it, and they use the virtue signaling to get people on board with them. They get their flying monkeys, and so now you're the one that's outed. And you're like, maybe it is me, because now we're the ones that we look internally.
We automatically want to check ourselves.
Oh my goodness, maybe it's me, because all of these.
I'm okay tonight before I go to bed.
All these people think
before
this.
God. Yeah.
So and so all of these things. It's like I said, if you understand narcissism, or narcissistic traits, or the tools of narcissists, you're going to understand what is wrong with society today, and of course, it's, like I said, it's Satan's work. It's the lack of God, the lack of accountability. It's really just comes down to that, in my opinion. So I think I think I've hit all the points home that I wanted to. But
so narcissistic projection
Yes.
This could be any situation where the narcissist accuses you of
Yes,
something
and I just went through
that
that.
they are not guilty of, that they are guilty of.
Exactly.
The most common one being cheating, which is what you said.
Right.
They have to accuse you of it in order to take the focus off of them. Gaslighting, twisting the truth. This is a crazy-making technique,
Yep.
which has you questioning your reality. This is done by telling outward lies and doing so in a manner that makes you question yourself. I am so happy because I got to say, I did not question myself not one time. Not one single time did I question myself that whatever I was being accused of was true. Like, not even this much, because I knew that that was not true. Okay, and so I was farther along
But that's why
in my own healing than I thought.
That's where the weapon is God. You've been in constant communion with God.
Right.
You know,
right.
so if you're, that's why I'm saying the battle is won with God.
I would just get very irritated, and I know that's a kind of a trigger, but I would get very irritated, but part of that is my gifting. So it's like, I have to make sure that for me, this is for me, and hopefully this will help somebody out there, that would help me discern, like, wait a minute, because I'm adamant about, wait a minute, if injustice is being done, whether it's to me or you, my neighbor, the kid down the street, you know, the old person in the whatever, I get like, this is not right, and I can see that that's causing some kind of harm. So why are we going to allow that? To me, how do I explain it? And even if it's for me personally, because I battled with that. I battled with the fact that people would say to me, like you said to me, and I agree, you don't have to defend yourself amongst this riffraff, so to speak.
Exactly.
But I battled with it to the point of it's still a part of my healing process. And no, I don't have to defend anything. Matter of fact, a lot of it I literally laugh at. But there's some things that come up that I have to bring forth, especially to the public. I get people writing me going, they're saying this, they're saying that. Most people that write me are not accusing me at all. They're like, they know it's freaking Fruit Loops, you know. But I want to be able to defend the truth. I'm a defender of the truth.
Yes.
So, you know, that's my point.
Yeah, you're
you know.
the defender of the truth, but when you feel like you have to defend yourself at that point, see, the narcissist or those with narcissistic tendencies, they love the reaction. When they stop getting a reaction, eventually it trails off, and it's hard. You have to just really be a gray rock. That's why I say, act like a gray rock. What does a gray rock do?
Boring.
They don't breathe.
We can never be boring, though.
They don't talk.
Right.
They just sit there. You know? So you have to
for the narcissist.
So,
but I mean, any of these that we just named off, though, you know, they've all said that they think their narcissist is gone, and 10 years later they show up again.
Yes. So if you have a restraining order or an order of protection, renew it.
Renew it. Right.
Renew it, because they'll wait. They'll be like, oh, 4
Expired.
years are up. I'm
Boom.
coming. Here I come.
Here I come. Did you read about flying monkeys? You said gathering up of
Yes.
people who are often weak-minded.
That's my
individuals.
definition.
Yeah,
Yes,
I agree with that.
Yes, because we talked about the flying monkeys, and
They're
gather them up, and the media does that. Society does it through the media.
Yeah.
And it's just to get individuals who will support your cause and give you, this is the key, give you credibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
and
why
it's a pseudo credibility.
Right, the false credibility, actually. But yeah.
So, but I've definitely said this about the flying monkeys that I
they're-
can deal with on a personal level here. These flying monkeys, we call them trolls, flying monkeys, whatever you want to call them.
Monkeys,
Gathering up of people who are often weak-minded individuals, very much so, who support your cause.
But why are they weak-minded too? Because they don't have God.
They don't have God.
This is what I'm trying to say.
They all use scripture, all of them. There's no way you have God and you can sit there and plot and plan. Oh, Cindy's on right now. Let me take picture after picture while she's live. Let's make a fake profile page now. Let's put all these pictures of Cindy and look at how beautiful Cindy is. She's gorgeous, but let's get her when she yawns. Let's get her when she scratches. Let's get her, you know, when she has a, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And let's put all the, not that you could ever be ugly, but
listen, that's why I have accents on my
up.
name, because I don't want, like, you know, certain people fighting me.
Right. And then let's say, you know, like one time they took a picture of me and I scratched my arm because, you know, like, it's hot or whatever, or I got bit by a mosquito or whatever the case may be, and I scratched my arm, so they had to put that on. Like, it's just, it cracks me up, but okay. But they're also, I noticed that they're also, because we've dealt with these people before, so they're also narcissistic to begin with. They have narcissistic personality disorder. If you get to do what I do, which is where I have a full-blown investigation run behind everybody, okay, I find out, I mean, if you're targeting me, hello, like, what's the definition of stupid? Target Fran.
You are a wonderful person, Francesca. I know what you are talking about, and I have been married to a narcissist for years.
Who's that?
That is Fawn, Denmark.
Thank you, Fawn. So
we're going to get into questions actually before we get on.
If you guys want some questions,
because we are going lengthy, so we only have like 4 people left because we've probably taken up way too much of your Saturday.
But I know so that they also have narcissistic backgrounds, and also what I've discovered recently, because they did a full-blown investigation, which was criminal backgrounds, mental illness, severe backgrounds. So you're dealing with that too. But the Bible does say that. There's a scripture.
Mental illness is broken spirit.
It also talks about a double-minded man will receive nothing of the Lord. He is unstable in all. God doesn't say some. He says all of their ways. Mm-hmm. Okay, they're double-minded. So to me, that's like a split personality in a lot of ways, mm-hmm. because you're showing one face to the world. Yes. And actually, these people are hiding their face and showing another side. And privately, because I know what I experience and what they show here. And then I know, like, if I was to open up my messenger and show you how they really talk to me, right. You'd be like, ill. So, and I can relate this to anybody I talk to, anybody that I help, anybody that's going through it.
These are hurting people, and we have to be careful because we need to get them towards God, because God is the only one who can heal this.
Which is what I would love to see, of course,
overall. And that's the main focus.
There's some that are going to be the Judas, always. And that's something we have to understand. And the Bible does talk about in the last days that there's going to be evil men. The scripture says evil men will wax worse and worse. It doesn't say evil demons. Don't blame it on the devil, okay? It says evil men, mankind, evil men will wax worse and worse. So he warns us. He warns us over and over about wolves in sheep's clothing. So I believe that there is, and I think it takes a lot of prayer and time. I don't think you should just judge this instant, but you can get to the point where you judge, because the Bible says that we can judge. We will even judge angels. Not to condemn everybody to hell, and I'm not saying that by any means, okay? But what I am saying is that there is a time where God says, this person you no longer have to pray for anymore. He's done that with me many times. Where this person, right now, believe it or not, he has me still praying for a couple of them, okay? And he's showing me certain things about them, and that has stood. There's a couple that are so, I want to say, infiltrated with demons, that they have opened up their door, they've opened it up, that is it, they've crossed the line, that is it, and that is it. And it's sad to say it, and that's why I know the Bible talks about he's going to wipe every tear from our eyes, because we know what we're going to see at that day. We're going to see amazing beauty and joyous, eternal life, but there's going to be some that are not going to make it in, and that is going to make you cry. And he says he's going to wipe the tears from your eyes then. And he's not talking technically about here on earth, I believe it's heaven. But I did want to touch on that. I think Wesley, I don't know, do you want your own talk show? What do you want?
Do we have any questions? We only have a couple people left. So I think we went over. Oh, and actually, no, it's just about an hour.
We're at an hour? Well,
okay. We're at 3:59, so not bad.
Yeah, you know what I think what I'm going to do, guys? We're going to be doing this again, and I obviously will have a lot of this, and actually I'm going to have this posted on my page on YouTube. The dog's going to need to go out soon, so obviously, so I think what I'll do is any questions that you guys have, I will incorporate them into the next live broadcast. Again, I'm going to read
please comment, and we'll take care of it next time, or if I get invited back. I don't want to make any assumptions.
Other notes, though, very important. Experts on narcissism, shout out on YouTube too. Angie Atkinson, Queen Being, Dr. Romani, Ross Rosenberg, psychotherapist. Ross. Pastor R.C. Blakes, pastor and author of Queenology, Kingology, and the Father-Daughter Talk and Soul Ties.
Yes.
And Les Carter, psychotherapist, and like many others, we will be shouting out. Again, if you are watching this on YouTube, share, subscribe, and hit the bell. And she's so shy. And also, free dog to anyone. No, I'm kidding. And here on Facebook, please find my page. I Survived a Narcissist. You can too. An amazing healing community for all of you. Remember, we're taking this to a place that no one has seen before. Just keep staying tuned. You're going to see. And last but not least, if you guys want to book a talk with me, you can go to, and all of this will be in the description, punishedtheparent.com/consultations. Fill out that form. It's a 1 hour, book a talk, with me. We get to talk together.
I don't even have to book it.
Doesn't have to book it. When she leaves tonight, that dog's going to be in the back seat of her car.
Yes,
Okay.
she knows me.
Love you guys. God bless.